Hey, it's a new year, hopefully better than the last, because I don't know if I have it in me to go through another one like that again anytime soon. And you know what that means? Same old anime, huh? I wish I was joking, because it's split pretty evenly between Isekais, Season 2s, and idle crap, with a few islands in that sea standing out as different. But in order to decide if I was swimming in that sea or pitching a tent on Ecchi Island, I had to pick shows. So I used my most reliable method, of course, systematically undermining the US election so I could file bogus affidavits under show names, and whichever ended up in the Trump legal arsenal were my winners. And we got some cream of the crop this time around. Tatoeba last dungeon no mai no Mura no Shounen ga, Joban no Machi de Kurasu Youna Monogatari sounds like an isekai, but I swear it isn't, with a guy who's OP by comparison. Who am I kidding? We all know why I'm watching Urasekai Picnic, and it's because of the shoujo I tag, so let's just leave it at that. ReZero's wrapping up its Season 2 this time around, so we'll see if we can keep the hype train rolling. Orange rolls out the much-awaited Beastars Season 2 for all the closet furries still in denial to gush over. Jaku-Chara Tomozaki-kun is a cute-looking romance story about gamers trying to win IRL. Kumo desu ga Nani ka is about a girl going to another world as, you guessed it, a spider, and my arachnophobia is already acting up, so fuck this show, am I right? Gohan's latest attempt to convince the viewing public they're a real big boy studio flops onto the market with the grace of a morning constitutional with Praeter no Kizu. Cloverworks gives us Horimiya, a story about not judging a book by its cover. Byoui Ramune has a doctor solving supernatural diseases with a shonen show panache. Hold up. Skate? Well, why do I even bother, right? Skateboarding. That's all you really need to know. Idoly Pride is Lurch's idol show this season, and the Russian roulette bullet I took from the list because, hey, it's Lurch. Mushoku Tensei Isekai Ittara Honki Dasu is a perverted dude reincarnated as a perverted boy isekai protag, so you know, the usual. Visual Flight debuts with X-Arm, a pervy action sci-fi show about a brain in a jar. Tensei Season 2 hits like a wet noodle at half-mast, only because it's a Part 1. Wonder Egg Priority is a weird slice-of-life show by Cloverworks again, about an egg changing lives. Sure, I guess. Ecchi strikes again with Kaifuku Jutsushi no Yari Naoshi, reminding us once again why you don't fuck with the white mage. And lastly, Dr. Stone is back with Season 2 to not blue ball us on the conflict Season 1 built up after all this time. Let's get into this tangled mess of isekai in Season 2's proper. Because, you know, why not? Let's start off with a mouthful of a name, Tatoeba last dungeon mai no Mura no Shounen ga, Joban no Machi de Kurasu Youna Monogatari. Or because I know my audience doesn't speak Japanese, suppose a kid from the last dungeon Boonies moved to a starter town. As the name implies, it's about a kid who would, take a step back, we're applying video game logic here, be from a town close to the end of the game, moving to a town near the start. Since monsters in those areas are stronger, even a weak dude there would be a demigod by comparison, and that's basically the joke of the series. But hey, it doesn't rely on that as its only point. Since it's a fantasy adventure story about personal growth for the protagonist as he finds confidence to gain friends so he can achieve his dream. That's what cinches my interest for this one, as it's not just recycling the now tired OP dude in a fantasy world premise, but telling a story about that. Also helps he's only OP by comparison and not actually OP, as the people in his town are all much stronger than him, even like old people. The art for this one's pretty nice though, with some decent animation and a slick design and color palettes that make the thing look clean and cute, which is something Lead in Films does well when they try to. I'd say check this out if you're looking for some fun adventure this season. Speaking of Lead in Films, they teamed up with Felix Film for their second show this season with our next one, Urasekai Picnic or Otherside Picnic, whichever you want to go by. So most anime rocking a shoujo I tag have a romance one right next to it, but this one has a sci-fi, mystery, and adventure, telling me we're in for more than a story about two girls falling in love. There's some trippy, parallel otherworld stuff in this series with monsters, ghosts, or something in this other world. And it's up to our protagonist to find out what's going on. Where they'll bond and probably end up kissing along the way too, sky's the limit. The series throws us into the thick of it, where our protagonists meet and fight off one of these creatures. Normally I hate that kind of thing, as it often leaves me confused with all the information thrown at me, so I tend not to care and lose interest. But great news on that front, the characters don't know shit either, so we're all in this confusing mad dash together. Anyway, it turns out urban legends exist there, and the protagonists keep going back to find answers, and that's about all you really need to know. I'm kinda digging it from that little mystery and exploring another world angle. The animation isn't much to write home about though, especially when it uses random 3D elements to cut corners. That looks kinda janky, but the scenery porn is kinda nice, so at least there's a silver lining. I'll give it a few more episodes and see how it turns out. For right now, it's got a soft recommend. You know what's worse than giving a first impression on a season 2? Giving a first impression on a part 2 of a season 2. And that's ReZero this time around. Look, I've gone into depth in the past about how season 2 really improved my feelings on this series, and this is a continuation of that arc with deepening the mysteries. So check it out already. If you're into Isekai, that is. Oh look, we didn't get far from that little mess now, did we? Second verse same as the first. Beastars 2 is much in the same vein, as it's also a season 2. Did you like the slow building mystery and romance plots while grappling with the strict racial divides as society tries to wallpaper over them? Maybe the at times trippy visuals and no joke best looking CG anime to date. How about that? Or maybe just the furry shit's a turnoff for you, I don't know. Pitching a season 2 to people who haven't checked out the first is a pain in the ass. Check it out if you're into some good storytelling or you liked season 1. There. I need something original that isn't an isekai or season 2. So let's look at Jaku-Chara Tomozaki-kun or low-tier character Tomozaki-kun. The setup for this one's great for romance drama, as it'd normally be used for stupid comedy, so seeing it played straight tells me we're in for a ride. Starring 2 gaming nerds, the main one, Tomozaki, whose life sucks outside of gaming because he's an introvert with no friends, and Hinami, who's great at games, has friends, good grades, and is great at sports. So she offers to teach him a few exploits to make the shitty game of life less shit. Hey, I think we could all use a little bit of that. These 2 coming together leads into the romance for the series with the conflict in their personalities and lives. So a lot to look forward to. Seeing the start of this series, it lays out the character's point of view, his passion, and the premise early on in a way that makes you sympathize and buy in, which is what you'd want from a drama series, of course. The protag may be an otaku, but I don't hate him, which is great. The animation is on the better end of the good spectrum. It's not amazing, but the art for the series looks nice, polished, and has realistic proportions. Plus varied settings to show off the animator's skill with color. There's good direction and cinematography here to illustrate the character's struggle and point of view as well, which is nice in telling the story visually. I'm liking it so far, so it's getting a recommendation. Back into Isekai for a bit because we're not getting far from those this season. Kumo desu ga Nani ka, or So I'm a Spider, So What, is about a girl who died in our world in an accident caused by rampaging magic, so she was resurrected as a spider with the rest of her classmates who died as well, though they're not spiders like her. Thank fuck for that, right? This does happen suddenly and without warning too, like seconds into the first episode, in typical isekai fashion as to not waste a second longer on its premise, so it can get to the generic otherworld crap all the faster. It's at least different since the protagonist is reincarnated as a spider instead of a human, and thrown into the thick of the whole survival game called the food chain. But is that gimmick enough to carry this show? I'm not thinking so, because at the end of the day, spider or not, it's still an isekai with a new coat of paint not doing much to distinguish itself from the crowd besides superficial changes. There's no real deviation from the formula, which is beyond stale at this point. You can tell because the main character just accepts her situation because it's pointless to dwell on it, and I don't know, maybe the audience would at least like an existential shift like that to hold some weight. Also relying on game tropes and systems like every other isekai does these days. Fantastic. Haven't seen that done before. Animation-wise, it's pretty average in terms of its presentation with a pretty generic art design outside the protag herself, and that's not looking great since the first few episodes tend to be where the series puts in its effort. Also, there's some weird priorities with animation, like this party scene looks way too good for what it is. Some of these shots do look impressive, I'll give it that, but the obvious CG does cheapen them a bit. I guess it's not as bad if the whole scene's CG at least. I'm sure the source material has its fans and they're probably loving this series, but I'm not getting my hopes up for this. Second half of the episode is better than the first, but it's still just okay. So I guess a mild recommendation for Isekai fans? Next up is Project Scarred, Praeter no Kizu, the most miserable anime out this season and Gohan's next attempt to wow audience with their abysmal CG and compositing, looking like it's over a decade out of date. You'd be mistaken thinking a few of these shots look nice, but that's not indicative of the whole series. I know, I couldn't help myself but talk about how bad this show looks already, but come on, just look at it. Anyway, I'll bitch more in a bit. I need to talk about that whole concept and story thing this series tries to have. So in a world where the government collapsed after a rebellion and people with special tattoos protect the peace but serve separate organizations, Scards, as they're called, are serving their own brand of justice. So follow our scrappy gang of heroes through the slums as they try to make things right. Not a terrible premise, I can get down with it, but that's never the problem with Gohan's work. The problem is there's just a ton of skipped groundwork for why I should care, and I don't know, when exactly did this series escalate? I didn't even notice this kid was important to the conflict going on until the show suddenly, just decided he was. And that's not all. I literally can't figure out why they keep drawing attention to their crap CG. It's not just that the models and textures are low poly in quality, or that the lighting doesn't even match the 2D elements, but mostly how bad these elements mesh together. They didn't even attempt to properly camera track the 2D stuff into the scenes, giving a floaty feel to the characters, feeling like they don't actually fit in. Or maybe it's the continuity and flow issues that plague how this is cut together with too much action skipped. So I'm just constantly questioning small spatial stuff, like when did this dude walk out from behind the corner? I don't know, last we saw him he was behind it. And shit like that is why this is bad. Not to mention the sweeping wide camera movements and that poor compositing just draw attention to it. It's not that the people behind this don't have ambition or vision for these sort of shots, but they lack either the talent or resources to pull them off, which is my main problem. I get that this studio gets shit on for their work and it's kinda cliched to do so at this point, but I can't recommend something that makes me question why I'm watching it every 2 seconds. Hard pass. Let's look at something I might actually enjoy. Cloverworks' adaptation of Horimiya. So a girl who looks too perfect at school with good grades, is really nice and an all-around popular person, bumps into the school's resident glasses-wearing otaku loser outside of class. But she's dressed all housewife-like and he's rocking a ton of piercings and a tattoo. Now the two have a secret about one another, making them bond over their shared experience of knowing the other's true self and their unexpected personalities. I like how Hori isn't stuck up or resentful, taking care of her little brother isn't a burden to her, and Mura isn't an actual punk. That's just his style and he's really super sweet. This is a slice of life comedy with some romance thrown in, which is nice, as it allows us to get a laid back look at the opposites attract angle, even if those opposites end at appearance. The art for this one is deceivingly basic, as while its designs aren't super flashy, it's animated well with nice detail, making it look good in a subtle way. Using some great color and highlights adds a good touch to an otherwise boring shot, and I appreciate it here. Not to mention the series knows and trusts its audience to tell its story subtly with its camera work, shot choice, and cinematography. This one's cute and it plays loose with its plot, so it feels light, which draws me into the romance more. Go check it out, because I feel like this will be one of the better choices this season, especially for a romance comedy. Well, that's about halfway through the lineup, and that usually means an ad break is coming, but only some sold-out YouTuber would actually, plan a segment for that. Feeling sick after all that shit coming down the pipe? Well, the doctor is in with Byoui Ramune, or Dr. Ramune, Mysterious Disease Specialist. Shounen really hasn't been making much of an appearance this season outside of Jujutsu Kaisen continuing, and the plethora of Isekai too, I guess, but fuck those, they don't count. So this one's about a doctor who's treating mysterious supernatural diseases in patients that modern medicine can't, with a shonen protagonist angle, of a foul-mouthed doctor with a do-as-he-pleases approach to medicine. I will say, it's It's at least different than most of the stuff out this season, both hitting my love of the supernatural and my guilty pleasure of the shonen genre by being so over the top and wacky with its problems and solutions. I like the off-the-wall humor this series has, as it feels akin to the Reagan-focused stories in Mob Psycho. But you know, this dude isn't a con man, so yeah. And it may be a bit played out, but the Doctor being kind-hearted is also a saving grace for his character, even if he's rough around the edges. What I'm saying is, at least it's engaging content. As for the art, it's decent enough. Most shonen manga have a distinct art style by the artist that really stands out, and the studios doing the adaptations go to great lengths to adapt those designs as well. And this one carries that here, with striking over-the-top designs. I can't really say that the animation or color choices are the best though, for the majority of the scenes at least, as those are, you know, mostly just okay. It gets the job done without distracting, but that doesn't really stand out as special. Well, besides the eyes I guess, which have a weird amount of effort to put those at the forefront of every scene. I'm liking what this has though, so check it out for some non-battle shonen fun this season. Next, let's check out Skate the Infinity, an anime about death races on skateboards in an abandoned mine. If that sounds crazy, it is. And if that didn't get you pulled in, it's a sports anime done by Bones, so it should have some crazy animation at least to back up that cracked out plot. The description alone for this didn't really do much to pull me in, as skateboarding as a sport doesn't really interest me. Not to mention the summary was just, you know, a tad too try-hard for me. But seeing Bones behind it and seeing it's an original work, it's bound to be worth a look at least for some cool visuals. The series is quick to pull viewers in with its core cast, establish their goals, and setting up the main premise, which is great, because it gets me invested in what's happening. The main dudes, Reki and Langa, building a friendship over their new job and passion, is a nice connective glue to keep the story personal without relying on sports anime cliches. Not to mention, it's not filleting the sport like most other anime do. So it's got a lot going for it in the writing department. But how about we get into those visuals? That's what you're here for after all. I gotta say, Bones did it again with some amazing character designs, awesome backgrounds, camera work, and sprawling environments that capture the downhill races this series follows. And I'm all for that. Check this out if you're looking for a sports anime this season, especially one that looks this good. If I'm going to watch an idol show, I'm gonna watch one that's got a studio behind the wheel who knows how to tell a story visually with style. And that's how I ended up with Idoly Pride. I don't know what the appeal is of these sort of shows because while they do seem stupid on the surface, they tend to blend music and character drama well enough to make them generally enjoyable. Which is probably the main marketing force behind them too, but you know, what do I know? I'm just some dumbass YouTuber. So another show about a group of girls all fighting to be the best idol group out there in the harsh world of, pop music, shedding blood, sweat, and tears to shine their brightest. This is a world where an AI program judges idols in real time to grade and rank them on how well they do in their audience engagement. Oh, I see Facebook finally got into the idol game, and it treats this all like a tier system, so we know how well they're doing, I guess. Though it does kinda suck when it spends the first episode building up one of the characters just to kill her off, but it's okay because she's a ghost now helping the rest of the cast. That wasn't out of left field. Is the dude crazy? I think he's crazy. I'm really torn on this because it's not bad per se, but it feels really plain from a studio I know can do a lot better. While the designs are cute and the characters are what you'd expect from an idol show, and I guess it's all built on this theme of pride and doing the whole idol thing because it's what they want to do regardless of how hard it is. Which isn't super memorable as a theme, right? Like, is that just me? I kind of expected more from Lurch, because I know when this studio half-asses its stuff, it's still pretty good, and this just doesn't hit home for me. It's nice to see them using CG in a smart way to animate the show though, even though I guess we've only really seen it in the ending. Guess we'll find out how well it looks once we actually get into a performance. In retrospect, I probably should have grabbed the post-apocalyptic idol girl show instead. Oh hey look, it's Isekai again. This time it's Mushoku Tensei Isekai Ittara Honki Dasu, or Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. I'm sure you know how this goes, but some otaku died in a freak accident and was reincarnated because he did a good deed. This time as a newborn, but keeping his memory so he's regarded as a genius prodigy. It's still bog standard for an isekai, goddammit. So he studies magic with his amazing magical power and the sword with his father, while making moves on girls because, he's got a 34-year-old virgin for a brain. Sound good? No? Well, too bad, that's what you get. What does make this stand out is, it's lacking the comedy tag. I guess that means we're gonna get some genuine attempts at emotion. I'm sadly looking forward to that. Isekai has too many winks and nods to the audience, so, it feels like it uses comedy as a crutch. But hey, if you stuck with me this long, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this around on you and give this some praise, because this is actually pretty damn good. There was a lot of effort put into establishing the world and character first and foremost, which I greatly appreciate in an isekai, mostly because they skipped that step. Plus, this series is, weirdly well animated. Studio Bind is making their debut with this one, and if this is the sort of work they're going to put out, with high level of detail and a ton of movement, keep an eye out for them. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this one more than Spider because, well, this one at least looks like it's trying and isn't basing itself on a gimmick. Soft recommend, at least for the animation, because this shit looks really good. I actually want to see where this goes. On to some new shit because fantasy crap is getting stale. X-Arm is an ecchi action sci-fi show about a guy who hates technology but is super good with it, dying in an accident, and then 16 years later a policewoman and her android partner retrieve and activate an AI superweapon. And that happens to be the main dude's brain, I guess? Yeah, sounds like a trashy 1980s sci-fi story. So, the plot's off the wall and kinda stupid, and I don't think it quite has enough stupid to make it work. Mostly because the main premise of the dude being good with technology isn't even established before it jumps to him just being a brain. Alright, I did it, I talked about the plot, so on to the elephant in the room. This is an entirely CG anime, which, have to say, that was a poor choice releasing this in the same season as Beastars. But, it's one of many poor choices that this anime made, so let's get through that. Everything in this one is low quality, from the Photoshop filtered photograph stills, the zooms on art that shouldn't be zoomed in on that much, because I can see the pixels, the zero lighting on the 3D models in their environment, because what are shadows, right? Oh, and bad mocap that makes Ruby Season 1, look good. This isn't even talking about the aimless shot composition that, just feels haphazard with no motivation behind it. Not like the audience needs to see anything in particular or to frame it in a pleasing way. No, please, I like my eyes bouncing around the screen from cut to cut. It keeps me guessing. Like, why am I still watching this? Looking at the credits for this, nobody in the staff worked on an anime before, and many of those who worked on the source material were also working on the anime. Basically, this feels like a budget project somebody felt bad for them and decided to throw on television so they'd feel special. At least that's what I would say if they didn't have an actual budget for the voice actors. Feel bad for them. And I'm sorry, why is this one character hand-drawn while the other's CG? Did they just not want to do a model for him? I'm sorry, was the plug-and-play library they were using to create their characters, tapped out? I have so many questions. And before I go too far down that rabbit hole, let's just skip it and say don't watch this unless you're looking for something to laugh at. Does that sound fair? Because I have a feeling the answers are as empty as this stare. Oh good, another Season 2 and another Isekai. Tensei Shitara Slime Data-ken Season 2 is finally here. The show that captured jaded hearts and minds back in 2018 with its laid-back story about a dude reincarnated as a monster and, not becoming the epitome of evil like Overlord. Having done some reading ahead in the manga and light novel, this arc coming up is going to be pretty good as it's where the stakes for the series are finally raised. Plus that foreshadowing smashed into our faces at the end of Season 1 is finally paid off, so look forward to it. If you're new to this, it's one of the better isekais that deal with people being turned into monsters, so check it out. Wonder Egg has an odd but not absurd premise this season. An original drama anime by Cloverworks with fantasy elements about a troubled 14-year-old girl out for a midnight stroll and picking up an egg because a mysterious voice told her to, and then instructed to break it because inside, she'll find what she really wants. This is a series that really does tell a lot without words, by showing the character, doing things. A minute into this series and absolutely no dialogue, we know quite a bit about the main girl by her picking up this bug off the street and then her burying that insect. That's some nice visual language to tell us the sort of person she is. The kind girl who isn't interested in people, and even showing her trauma slowly but surely throughout the course of the episode, giving us hints about why she is the way she is. There's a surreal blend of dream and reality in this one that's executed well to not just confuse, but intrigue the audience, pulling them into this strange premise, plus themes of bullying, suicide, and coping with that, giving some appreciated depth. I don't talk that much about backgrounds and animation, but holy hell are these good. The level of detail in some of these shots was enough to make me question if I was looking at a photo of a model town or something. In fact, the whole art design for this series is nice, with great effort put in to make them move well, to the point that the shot framing, movements, and level of details and models with smooth, unique animation feels movie production quality at times. Cloverworks just did an amazing job with this one, both in script and delivery, thanks in no small part to Nojima Shinji's first outing in anime. Though he's been working on television dramas for a while, if this is the level of quality he's gonna bring to anime, he's a breath of fresh air. I have a feeling this will be one of the better shows out this season, and possibly the year if it can deliver on its promises. Highly recommended. Now that we've gotten that full course meal out of the way, let's get into some junk food with Kaifuku Jutsushi no Yari Naoshi, or because the English title chose to suck, Redo of Healer. About a guy who worked his ass off at being a heal bot for everyone, and broken to the point like a worn out condom. But realizing that his class is actually broken when used right after years of abuse. The premise is somewhat interesting, with a dude coming to terms with his magic's massive drawbacks, learning to harness those and then turn them into a benefit, and realizing that he can reverse time, so he decides to redo his whole adventuring career armed with that knowledge. But damn, something's just not sitting right with me on this. Yeah, right on cue. The ecchi tag on this smacks you in the face, and you realize that while it's got a decent premise, it's just another OP protag in a fantasy world getting all the girls' story. One we've seen a million times with some added despicable character being the worst to top it off. It's a mix of Shield Hero and, you know what, scratch that. It's like Shield Hero but less engaging. The art for this is flat, the animation is bare bones, and it's an overall basic production that doesn't really stand out aside from the violence and tits. Which, great, that means it's gonna get some buzz online. Glad I'm gonna have to talk about that controversy later on, despite both the violence and tits being heavily censored and, well, pretty damn tame compared to some of the other shit we've seen. Except that, I guess. This is why we can't have nice things, because people would rather watch edgy fat fuel than something good like Wonder Egg Priority. Sadly, we have an anticlimactic finish this time around. Dr. Stone Season 2 finishing up where the first left off, with the mounting war between Senku and Tsukasa's forces over the future of the world. Brawn or brain, which will win out? And if you like mild science lessons mixed with your shonen protag using his brains to solve problems in essentially the Stone Age, you'll enjoy this series. So go watch Season 1 so you can catch up with the continuation if you haven't already. Recommended for fans of the series and people looking for a science-based shonen show. So that's what I'm grabbing this season, and looking at it all, it's exciting, because last year we really didn't have any hills. Everything was either pretty good or middling, except Gibeah. But here we have shows that are looking great, ones that suck pretty hard, and a few that could swing either way to keep it interesting. Anyway, tell me what you think about Winter 2021 in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and do all the other YouTube stuff to help this channel grow. I do appreciate all of that. You can also check out my Discord with a link down in the description where you can chat with me and other people. There you can also find a link to my Patreon where you can support me. I also offer perks like voting on what I do next. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Nadeshiko for their continued support. Thanks for watching.